Okay, before I start, check out the voter registration table over in the back, over in this direction somewhere. But yeah, sorry. Tripped on the mic. Hello everyone, my name is Jai. I was born and raised in Worcester, and I'm a member of the Independent Socialist Group. I'm going to start out with an inspiring Malcolm X quote about unity against this rotten capitalist system. In my opinion, the young generation of whites, blacks, browns, whatever else there is, you're living at a time of extremism, a time of revolution, a time when there's got to be change. People in power have misused it, and now there has to be change, and a better world has to be built. And I, for one, will join in with anyone, I don't care what color you are, as long as you want to change this miserable condition that exists on this earth. What this underscores for us is the reality that our movement, our struggle against police brutality and against racism must be and should be multiracial. And the beauty of the movement so far, more so than prior recent uprisings against police brutality, has been overwhelmingly multiracial in a multi-ethnic character, with everyone coming together in opposition against cops murdering and attacking disproportionately our black workers and youth. In fact, the people that have come out to these protests instinctively understand that we must stand in solidarity against police brutality and against racism. And we see this reality reflected here in Worcester today, with so many different colors in this crowd right now. We've seen young people, and I'm talking middle and high school age, at the forefront of this movement, demanding that Black lives matter, that their own lives matter, and an end to the violence committed by our police system and by capitalism. The youth are bold and ready to fight. Just yesterday in Providence, high school students led a spectacular protest that drew in at least 10,000 people. 10,000! Protests have spread throughout the country, demanding justice, not just for George Floyd, but for Breonna Taylor, for Ahmaud Arbery, for Sandra Bland, for Trayvon Martin, and all the other names that there are just too many to list. And all the other people who have been so callously murdered by police with absolutely no consequences. These predominantly peaceful protests have been met with vicious repression by the police, and many states, including many with Democratic governors for that matter, like Minneapolis, and mayors like Minneapolis, like LA, like New York City, have called in the National Guard to help attack protesters with so-called non-lethal weapons like rubber bullets, tear gas, pepper spray, and in some places even ICE and the Border Patrol have been called in to assist the police in intimidating protesters and scare off undocumented protesters from supporting the movement. Yeah, that's right, boo! I want to emphasize that this vicious repression that we've seen, this instigation of violence, that these cops intentionally brutalizing and provoking protesters to justify even more violence on their part, on the parts of the cops, it's not just happening in Kentucky or Georgia and in other, Republican-dominated states. This is happening in New York City, in Los Angeles, in Chicago, in Boston, in Worcester, in our own backyard, right? In so many major cities where the Democratic Party runs the whole city, including the local criminal justice system, this violence continues to occur. The Democratic and Republican politicians, they do not care about police brutality, period. If they did, wouldn't they have solved it by now? The Democratic Party has claimed to be our allies on this issue for decades. Yet they continue to rely on racist and tough-on-crime attitudes. They were some of the lead architects in expanding of our current mass incarceration system, and they have failed to put forward any real change, even after the major uprising against police brutality that started back in 2014 under the banner of BLM. So it shouldn't surprise us that these major cities with some of the worst histories of police brutality and murder are majority controlled by Democrats, including the district attorneys for that matter. We can't wait on the Democratic Party and their billionaire backers to save us. They're not our allies in this or any struggle against oppression. And that's just a fact. We can only rely on our own power as workers and youth. If we are to fight to undo racism and genocide that global capitalism was built on and create a truly just society, it must be done through our own power, independent of corporate influence. Malcolm X said it best. You can't have capitalism without racism. He period. This system was built off the backs of the transatlantic slave trade and the genocide of indigenous peoples. What we need is our own party, an independent workers' party that can fight against the economic abuses of capitalism to uplift our black and brown workers from poverty, and that can put forward a clear program of demands to begin to dismantle the rotten, racist nature of how policing functions in the U.S. We need a party that will fight for defunding the police, massively cutting the police budgets that are incredibly bloated, and instead investing so much of this tax money in things that actually benefit our communities, right? Putting this money towards education in our crumbling schools, building affordable housing to solve our housing crisis and to help those who are housing insecure, creating green jobs and building towards a green transition, funding free universal health care, and other basic social services that have been gutted to bits in this capitalist, neoliberal country and world that we live in. We need a party that will fight to demilitarize the police, to take away their implements of war, their pepper spray and their tear gas and their rubber bullets. We need a party that will fight for community control of the police, subjecting the police to genuine control of the community. We're not talking about independent review boards that, give suggestions, right? That's not what we're talking about. If the role of the police is truly to protect and serve, then there should be no issue with subjugating the police to the control of the communities that they supposedly serve. The criminal justice system cannot investigate itself. We need hiring power, hiring and firing, controlling policy, controlling the budget, independent investigations, because they will not investigate themselves. We need a party that can unite the working class and the youth on a clear program, fighting against capitalism, against racism, against sexism and homophobia, and all forms of oppression, that can build the confidence of our class towards achieving a socialist future in which genuine democracy and control of society is firmly in the hands of the workers, not millionaire politicians and their corporate backers. To begin this effort, we need the movement to get organized in our communities and in our workplaces. These protests have been fantastic, but we need more. To achieve these needed systemic changes will require a high level of organization and coordination. The ruling class and their police and military forces are organized, and so should we. We should immediately form neighborhood committees with elected members, workers, youth, and community members, and democratic structures to decide future actions, to decide our tactics, to develop our program, a clear list of demands to direct the movement. And we should be coordinated citywide. Protesting can only be one part of our organizing strategy, an important part. They raise the issue, but we must disrupt business as usual as well. Ultimately, the ruling class, the capitalists, the only actions they care about are what affect their bottom line, their ability to make profit. We should organize for 24-hour general strikes of workers in all sectors and cities across the country, in coordination with labor unions, to win the movement's demand by putting further economic pressure on the bosses who are already staggering from blows of the health and economic crisis. Ultimately, we need to nationalize big corporations as a step towards ultimately ending capitalism and replacing it with a democratic, egalitarian, socialist society with power firmly in the hands of the working class. If you are interested in anything I said, I appeal to you to join the Independent Socialist Group, to join the movement, to keep fighting, to keep getting organized, to keep coming out into the streets. Our table, Independent Socialist Group, is over there, under the tent, the blue tent. It's nice and shady. Take a break from the sun. But we must continue to fight against police brutality and get organized. Solidarity.
So next we have Andy from